Hey, AJ. Mm.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Trey Brown. I'm the program manager for the Adult Employment Services and Resource Center in Dallas. And one of the programs that I have the pleasure of managing is United Black Young. And it exists to enable young Black and underdeveloped men to fulfill their greatest potential for good. And that is our mission. We are a ADD prevention program, a behavioral program that follows the empowerment model. And one thing that UB has been really successful at in our tenure as an official empowerment program, we're almost 15 years running, is we have found ways to connect with not only traditional partners in HIV work, but non-traditional partners. And we find community, and then we bring all of our services, all of our resources to the communities that we serve, and then we re-engage everyone so that everyone understands that they are a part of the work. It's not just us serving, but they have the power to serve themselves. We know that we are not the first program of our kind to do this kind of work. Quite visually, we understand the history of HIV and the fact that it was community work that got the ball rolling, that got all the research done and everything. And so we took that model and tried to create community for ourselves. And through that, we found a lot of joy and a lot of success in connecting with our communities through art, through ballroom, which encompasses movements, visuals, encompasses music, and all of that. And so we're going to have a little discussion today about what it takes to build a community, to authentically engage communities through our work. And we're going to start off with a video, and then I'll introduce our panel.
Birthday, right? Gorgeous fingers.
Okay, so first I want to give a shout out to Devin James, the founder of the Devin used to be our senior coordinator with me and actually filmed that video and produced all of that. So thank you so much for that. Just one other way to connect people through art. And so now I want to introduce our panelists. We have Peter Logan Poole, we have Tweaky, we have J-Rock, and then AJ. AJ is program coordinator with United Black Element. J-Rock used to be a senior coordinator with United Black Element, and he is a founder and director of the Youth Talks Network. Make sure you follow him for all of our leads, and he's about to be expanding his talks into greater connections with the community. We have Tweaky Garson, who is an Emmy-nominated producer, writer, director, co-creator of the documentary Kiki and the mini-doc M&B. And we also have PJ with us today. And PJ actually works for me, so if you were in here for lunch, they're the creators of injectable PrEP, injectable treatment options for HIV as well. And so PJ also is the senior coordinator for United Black Element as well. So a lot of rich history within the community, a lot of rich history within Ballroom, and we're excited to have this conversation today. So to get us started, I have a question for J-Rock. Can you give us a brief history of Ballroom and why the community needed something like Ballroom?
Hello, everyone. A brief history of Ballroom and why the community needed Ballroom. To make it sweet and brief. Well, if you really look back at it from the beginnings and everything, even though we ain't progressed as much as we thought we did, with accepting gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever, it really started as an escape away from society and what they felt about us, and y'all already know back in the 70s how it was. Just learning history, or if you were here, I don't know how it was to be gay, you know, bisexual or whatever. That was their escape. That's how they went down to, you know, underground ballroom scene. It's more mainstream now. Y'all see it all on TV and everything. But at first, that was their little secret, how they got together to compete and everything, to come together as a family. Of course, it did start with the pageant scene, where we all reference Crystal LaBeija and how the pageant scene and everything was. Even within our own community, kind of segregated. You know, even with the gay community, it was still segregated. You would find black and brown people that were doing way better than their white counterparts, but when it came down to the person that won the pageant, it was the white counterpart. So people like Crystal LaBeija went and said, you know what, we're gonna have our own pageants. And so they started having their own pageants. This is like, it goes way back, but when they started having their own pageants, what came from them pageants were other categories. So those other categories branched off from the pageant, so it wasn't just gown and the way that you looked and the presentation. There comes other categories with how real are you, other fashion categories, and then realness, can you pass among society without your teeth being clocked and stuff like that. And they started gathering. The underground scene, this is how they came together. Now when the lights went off, all those mothers and those fathers that brought these kids to do this competition, they ended up having to take care of those kids. Because why? Y'all already know, back in the day, people got just thrown in the street. I don't care if you're 14, 15, 16, whatever. If you're gay, you cannot be here. You can't stay here. So some of those kids did sleep out in the street, on the piers, in the parks and stuff like that. But guess what? It was a transgender woman or a gay male that took them in and made sure that they finished school, made sure that they were taken care of mentally, morally, physically, spiritually, and stuff like that. So that's why ballroom was needed back then. And it's still needed today for the same reasons. For some reason, it looked like we were going backwards. It's like we're going backwards. Like I said, with all this legislation and everything, sooner or later, people like myself and Twiggy, are going to have those kids again that's saying, I got put out, or I'm ostracized and I don't know what to do. So now we got to go back and pull from our original, white era ballroom and our pioneers and, lean on them for strength of how to take care of these kids.
Can you explain to us how the kiki scene evolved from the mainstream? Because with the work that we do with Not Black Element, we mostly engage with the kiki scene on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, there's a few different origin stories of the kiki scene. There's the Ricky Allure and Jay Blahnik sort of time period of doing kiki balls and kiki functions, which was like in the 90s and early 2000s. But the kiki scene as we know it today evolved from the work of Tahiri Mizrahi, Aisha Diori, Prodigy at the time, well, Latex and then Prodigy, and a number of other folks who were in ballroom that worked at service providing organizations in New York City. They started out having kiki functions before they were actually kiki balls, and Aisha specifically sort of turned the kiki scene into an intervention, a way to reach young people in the sort of format that you all do now. So she's a mother in that way. And because ballroom is ballroom and Black and brown LGBTQ people are who they are, it expanded, right? And so you have houses like Juicy that J-Rock is in, my house that was open at the time, Poochie. Back then there was a house of Pink Lady. All of our houses were pretty much the first 3 kiki houses that expanded internationally. And then it just grew and evolved and grew and evolved. And so it's its own microcosm within the world of ballroom now.
And talk about the reach, like you just mentioned, the houses are international. Who is ballroom?
As a whole, I mean, to J-Rock's point, ballroom has been around for a century, and its reach is global. There's members of both Black houses all around the world, and ballroom is Blackware excellence, to answer your question. The ideas from designers, the ideas for TV shows, the ideas for all types of art is born in ballroom first, and then either extracted or commodified, and every once in a while, collaborated with.
That part. It's so very interesting because lots of times, like, we're here, Black Queer Dancing Festival, and oftentimes we understand that Black and brown people are the blueprint for a lot of artistic expression and elements. We're the blueprint for the kind of performances that are out there and everything. It's the energy and the soul that is put into it. How does that come through ballroom when people are out there performing?
When who's performing? Like the famous people and everything?
No, when people in ballroom performing, like people within the community.
I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that. I just know that when these kids are on the floor and everything, what you see on the floor it always have a bigger story behind it. A lot of people see these balls and, they see stuff on TV and mainstream. This is how we can separate people doing this for competition, or I seen this on YouTube, versus someone that I just got my lights cut off, or I just got kicked out of my house. And it comes across different. You see somebody performing on the ballroom floor and they just came in, win, lose, or draw, and they gave it they all. It's almost like going to church. When you see that person bust out shouting and running across the ballroom is the exact same way. When we see somebody go in with this, and like if they out there selling their face and they just in it, you go behind them and you ask them, everything okay, you good? Everybody else just like, oh my God, yes. But the person that know that I had to come here tonight. I had to let it out. This is where I'm going to let it out, because I can't let it out nowhere else, because nobody will be able to understand what I'm going through. So that's how they do it within their performance. Whether it's getting on the runway and strutting down, or whether it's doing Vogue, or whether it's just walking and selling your face. You knew I could come around my people, the people that understand me. Somebody that's going to praise me for being, gay or flamboyant, or either I'm highly sexual or whatever. They're going to praise this and say, yes, because they understand that we are a family. And they're not going to ostracize it or try to make it like immoral or something bad or, throw it away. So
I like to add that I love this analogy of using like the church experience. I always liken it to the Holy Ghost myself, like thinking about how typically that becomes for religious folks, a kind of spiritual release, like a way to exert and admonish the pain that they're going through, the joy that they're experiencing, the struggle that they might be going through, how that comes out. I often see that really be the catalyst for how people express themselves on the ballroom floor. And like Gerard said, there's always a story behind it. And sometimes even, the person who's coming and expressing themselves in that way are just trying to survive, right? Maybe they need to win that category to have a place to sleep that night, right? So, there's always something more behind it. And then in addition, I think that ballroom offers a space of freedom that we as Black people don't find anywhere else, right? So you can come and you can be your full self, right? Your full vulnerable, onion peeled back self, right? And be praised for that. Whereas in society, as soon as you leave the ball, right, you have to go back into this cocoon of being what society tells you that you are.
So ballroom, as you grow and build your persona, as you build your skill, it gives an opportunity for us to be able to garner some self-confidence, some self-awareness, ability to express ourselves in ways that we might not have had based on our backgrounds, based on being more socially conservative in our homes, not allowed to be queer, not allowed to be expressive, things like that. I'm curious to anyone involved, because we have people that have such history with ballroom, what has ballroom, or what can you attribute from ballroom to the growth in your personal life?
I could say, coming from Nebraska and everything, like being raised by my father, today in this current present state, like this is the gayest I've been, but it's the happiest I've been. Because my dad is such a macho man, so I've always seen women fly in and out of our house, and I've always been held to the standard of like, you need to be an athlete or you need to be this. But when I finally entered ballroom and I seen somebody in a pair of heels, I was like, oh my God. But I was like, okay, so when I tried my first pair of heels on, I was like, this feels right, like this feels good. So when I slipped into my first effect, and it was real scandalous with the heels, I was like, okay, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So it's like, it has actually helped me become like authentically who I am as a person. So it's like, I can still be the athlete that my dad really wanted me to be, but I can also stick to who I know that I am also.
I want to also add, just give it up again for the that, so most folks know me as ballroom, what we like to call ballroom adjacent, right? Have always been in close proximity to ballroom, but never necessarily actually been a part of a house, or I'm not gonna say I haven't walked a ball, I have walked two and I have won one. So let me just put it out there. But of course not like officially a part of, you know, a house and a part of the community, but I've always been adjacent because the work that I do has always been in support of my community. That has been my life's mission for as far back as I can think about who I identify myself to be. But being a part of Ballroom and how that has influenced me is that, you know, when I was identifying who I was, right, in all the parts of myself, particularly I think back in high school, it was Black trans women who brought me to the clubs that made me feel protected, that made, you know, showed me who to talk to, who not to talk to get my drink, to ensure that, you know, I wasn't, you know, nobody was trying to drug me or anything like that. And that sense of nurturing has really shaped who I am and even my motivation to do that to others now. And so, I mean, to do that to others coming behind me. And so this idea of finding chosen family, for many of us, right, who share this story around being closer to chosen family than biological family, has really enriched me as a person, right? I've found out more about myself and learned more about the world from my chosen family in the shorter time that I've been connected to them than my biological family that I was born into. And so this idea of having a close network and a sense of belonging, I think really serves as the foundation for a lot of us to be who we are today.
Thank you for that. That is something that I find the most appealing for me. I come from Beaumont, Texas, small town east of Houston. But growing up the way that I did, there was no community like this for me. There wasn't anything like that. And being able to now be ballroom adjacent as well, like I told people I'm going to be a legendary specialist. But like, the sense of community and the fact that people who are also in need, people that are also needing services, that are also marginalized, are now paying all of that forward and creating opportunities for mentorship, for taking care of others is something that is so impactful for me and so wonderful to have watched, to have witnessed, to have the privilege of that adding a positive into my life. What is it like for you to develop opportunities for mentorship within a community? Because that is something, as you mentioned already, that a lot of people from a lot of the Black trans women back in the day started these houses and were taking people in. What is it like being able to witness that? What is it like being able to pay it forward?
Because I was going to add on to his, but that question also allows me to add on to what he said. Within Ballroom, we also have this thing where we have people say, Ballroom ain't done nothing for me. That ain't gonna be on there. You can't put that on the resume. You can't do this. You can't do that. Baby, that don't do nothing for me. When we get into arguments, every now and then you'll hear, that don't do nothing. Y'all just out there slamming your back on the floor. Ballroom don't do nothing for me. It was different for me. It was very different for me. I came up in the don't ask, don't tell generation. I did United States Navy for 21 years. 15 of those years was ballroom. Had it not been for ballroom, I would never have made United States Navy chief. I was missing one thing in my package. It was called volunteer service. So I was right here in Houston, Texas, working for an RM Society under Legacy Group. And I went to them and I told Ian and all of them, I said, hey, all this stuff I be doing on Tuesday and stuff, and we be here practicing, ain't that like volunteer? And he was like, well, yeah. Well, can you write a letter? I turned that letter in. The United States Navy didn't want to know like the ins and outs. They just wanted to know, did you get volunteer hours? Those volunteer hours helped me make E7, which was chief. Some people retire and never make chief. So I tell them, I personally benefited off of coming on Tuesdays, teaching people how to vote, because them volunteer hours got me more money. Them volunteer hours got me to retire. I'm paid for the rest of my life, with benefits for the rest of my life, because Ballroom and some gay kids wanted to learn how to slam their back. So it's all about how you use it. You see what I'm saying? When it comes down to the mentorship of it and everything, it also helped me personally. And I say this a lot now. I am a person that came from a very stern background with my grandmother, very stern religious and go to church Monday through Monday, saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, do you hear me type background, right? So I was real strict. Coming in the ballroom, they broke me down. They will break you down and they will read you, right? So they had to break me down and kind of break me down and try to understand other people's views, other people's voices. Everybody's not like you. And you know what I'm saying? So by me having a heart for people, I had to learn that. These young people taught me how to talk to people, how to lead people, because you don't want to lose them. If you really have a genuine heart for them, no matter how they talk back and stuff like that, you don't want to lose them, right? In doing that out here in the scene, I took that back to the military. That's how I led my sailors. That's how everybody wanted to know, Chief, how you get these kids to do everything you said? Because Ballroom taught me that you have to sometimes, even as the leader, shut the fuck up and listen to what they're saying. Then you can better know how to take care of them or how to meet their needs. And it's the same thing in the ballroom community. Sometimes we see these young people out here, getting into it and all this kind of stuff. Every now and then, just pull them to the side and say, how are you doing? What's wrong? How are you feeling today? What's going on with you? And you will get a whole story, and you may have the resources to connect them to come out of their problem. So it takes a real special person to call themselves a mother or a father or just a leader in ballroom. I take those titles very seriously because y'all can be over somebody's life. Y'all can be the determining factor whether somebody take their life, all because they turned to one person that understood them. So it goes deeper than what y'all see on these YouTubes and stuff like that, because when them lights go off on that ballroom floor, life start happening. And it started life really for real. All the stuff we talk about in these conferences and all these slides and mental and everything, it's the ballroom parents that have that. And then what I said when we first got here yesterday, sometimes we do it so much we forget to take care of ourselves mentally and stuff because we're dealing with, right now I am the father of the Gulf Coast. I'm not just J-Rock Ebony, I'm the father of the Gulf Coast. I have kids in all houses. When they call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I pick up that phone. Because I don't know what's going on. I don't know who needs Big Target. I don't know who needs to talk to somebody mental health or something like that. I don't know who just got kicked out of their apartment. Like I said, I don't know who just cashed at me and said, I just need $5 to get something from McDonald's and get a $3 bundle. I am hungry. So it goes deeper than that. And Ballroom really, it was Ballroom that did that for me. Through all the shade, all the reading, all the bitch chop, hi ya, bitch you ain't. Through all that, it just built me to be a better person, a better leader. So.
Yeah, I'll try to J-Rock. I'm quite literally an example of that. When I came to Ballroom, I was 14 years old, and I had just been asked to leave my church because of my femininity and my sexuality. And so I grew up in the church, and it devastated me to the point I had suicidal ideations. And just a few months later, the first person who took me to my first ball, we met, and it happened in a matter of a couple months. I was at my first ball that same year. And so Ballroom really did save my life. And to J-Lock's point, it is our due diligence to take that skill set and that nurturing that we receive in Ballroom and to pay it forward in so many different ways. You mentioned working on Pose, and I remember my very first meeting with Ryan Murphy for the show in 2017. He said, what do we need to do to get this show right? And my answer was, you need to incorporate Ballroom at every level of this production or it's going to fail. Luckily, he fucking listened. And so we have people in Ballroom from background to producing, to hair, to makeup, to all this sort of stuff. And I say that to say that like you have to not only make sure that the doors are open, you have to sit at other tables, you have to set new tables, right? And mentorship, it goes across all of those things. Another part that I just want to underline for J-Rock is like we don't get days off. I woke up this morning to a text that one of my house members' apartment caught on fire. We have to jump in there. Just before this panel, a different house member lives in that same building, so their house parent called me to say, what are we doing for these kids? Like it doesn't get turned off, you know what I mean? So mentorship really, in the ballroom context, really is about how you show up with and for people.
And I just want to underscore that mentorship component, that model that we find in ballroom is not just relegated just to the LGBT community. We have straight kids too. Like I know for sure I have straight kids, you know, and so it doesn't matter the orientation, it doesn't matter the identity, it doesn't matter any of those things. What's at the center of that is the love, commitment, compassion for bringing someone up in this world, and that model has been created and sustained in ballroom in some unhealthy ways too, but mostly in healthy ways, and has really become a saving grace for young people in general, not just young people of our community.
One more thing I'll add to that I just keep underlining stuff that you said, but is I was told the same thing when I came to ballroom. Like you couldn't put this on a resume, and it's so ridiculous. Well, absolutely, you can. And it's just so absurd because we learn so many hard skills in ballroom, like skills that you can use in so many different career paths. A ballroom house is a family, it's a production company, it's a sorority fraternity. You try and plan them all.
Right.
And you see how many skills that it requires to put on that production. Try running a house. You are talent acquisition, you are HR, you are all kinds of things. And so you really learn hard skill sets for being around the ballroom.
So it's less about ballroom not being able to be put on a resume, and it's about teaching people how to translate what they do in ballroom to resume language, which is all of our responsibility, right? For those who have come up and translated that language and those skills to add value to the workforce.
I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to that. But you were about to say something, AJ?
So I know what everybody just said. Really like J-Rock, and AJ said, like, our job really is never over, especially like with the line of work that we all do, especially like when we work at UB. I have people calling me all the time, talking about like, AJ, where do I need to go to get tested? And those are conversations that I know that are hard to have, especially like when you have, I guess like elders in the community. So for them to reach out to me, it needs a lot for mentorship for me because, like they said, we have these chosen families, and I know a lot of times they're not comfortable going to their personal parents or like their biological family. So I am the cousin and the uncle to many. So a lot of them come to me and say like, Uncle, what do I do? And it's like, okay, well, you can do X, Y, Z. But I get phone calls all the time at 3 o'clock in the morning. So one of my niece's dogs just passed away, and I was on the phone the whole time. But from start to finish, it was just like, I need you. So it's just like, we have to be there in multiple ways. It's not just ballroom. It's not just, just whatever it is. It's everything. So we're here for everything. So I'm trying to just make that clear to everybody. My phone's always open.
That part. As AJ's mentioned, I can attest. There are times where I would text and it's like, hey, I'm not supposed to work on this, but someone just called me and they're really nervous. And then you go and get tested and they want somebody to go with them. And I'm like, go. Your work's gonna be waiting on you to get back.
And that is true. Like 2 weeks ago, somebody walked in, literally just, I'm sitting working, and they walked in like, I need you to come with me to the clinic. And I'm just sitting there looking at train trips. I'm like, oh man, I'll get back.
So a few of you have alluded to it, but I want to talk about how you authentically engage the community. Because we're at a point now where there's all eyes on us. There's all eyes on ballroom. And to this point of, you can't build your resume, yada yada, whereas you have quite literally built your resume on ballroom. How can organizations authentically engage? And so I'm curious, PJ, you were with UB before Go Get started. What was it like then trying to engage the community and, and then also J-Rock getting involved with the community and wanting to bring Vogue Academy.
So Vogue Academy started as just Vogue practice, right, at UB. And the way that that space was created was really just making space available for people to come, right? Like, we had a drop-in center and folks came and they would cut the music on, the girls would get the dance in, they would go practice in one of the little separate rooms in our original location down in Deep Ellum. And from there, as we were witnessing it, folks would practice and then go take a break, get a snack. We just sit down and talk to people and talk, and we came to realize how important this was to them just to have a place to go and practice, right? You think about like what it would be like for them to want to practice their skill, but try to go to a public gym or something, and then what danger that might put them in just because of everybody's outside perception. So really just creating space originally was the catalyst for building the program, and then listening to the needs of those who participated in that space. And as Twiggy mentioned, and as we're talking about how organizations can do the best job at engaging folks, it's really engaging them in every part of the process in a meaningful way. And so Vogue Academy was built out of community. Like, they built that themselves. I just took what I heard from them and turned it into fundable language to write grants for it, right? But so like there's a science to that, right? And it takes folks on each side of that to make those types of things happen. And the Vogue practice turned to Vogue Academy, which has turned into now a nationally recognized program that really incubates folks in the Kiki scene here. And so again, that really just started as creating space and listening.
And myself, me being, able to go to New York, back and forth and everything, meeting like Twiggy and the ballroom community and knowing the actual Mecca and how it was started. We were doing the Vogue and everything, the practices and everything, and when I got involved, it was literally, because I'm gonna be real with y'all, I'm trying to see whatever benefits me too. I was having a ball called Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, and I just was like, well, they already having practice here in Deep Ellum at UBE, I'm gonna utilize that. I said, we're gonna have 4 practices to get y'all ready for a new performance at my ball, right? And it was 4 practices on 4 Fridays. That was in 2016. The ball happened, but what happened was they kept coming back every Friday. And I was in Killeen at the time. I was stationed in Killeen at the time. I literally would have to drive up after work on a Friday just for Vogue Academy, even if I had to go back to work on a Saturday. So I would drive up, and then all of a sudden we sat down, we got together, and we said, look, we're just gonna do it every Friday. Every Friday. Then I got real serious with it, right? With actually trying to teach them, because I'm like, wait a minute, they good. They catching on good, and I'm thinking like, in ballroom community, because I always have to take up for the Gulf Coast, I might can make some champions here, you know what I'm saying? Get our name out there. So we started practicing with them, and then the next thing you know, when we moved to when we lost our space, that's another story. When we lost our space and we went to Resource Center, myself and a couple of more, this is when I took the formula from New York, HMI. I was like, we got all these kids coming to this Vogue Academy. How can we use this to, engage the community and build the Kiki scene? So I said, how about, because the mainstream at the time with their egos was dismantled, you got all these kids learning how to vote, now they learn in other categories, but they can't take it nowhere, right? Everybody can't travel, everybody can't go region to region, state to state. So I sat down with myself and Tito and Sharon at the time was one of the coordinators, and Hannibal, and I said, hey y'all, we're gonna do a Kiki scene. We're gonna create the Kiki scene here in Dallas. It started in Houston now with Africa Juicy, but Africa moved. And when I went back to Dallas, I said, let's start a Kiki scene, like a governing Kiki scene, so these kids can come out and let's make balls for them. Let's get them prepared for balls. I did not in a million years imagine that that those maybe 50 to 100 kids was gonna turn into 500 to 600 across the Gulf Coast. And now to see, go out of town and people say my kid's name, that is crazy. To go from that space to being on HBO and winning $500,000 when you were just a kid that had 2 left feet, that's a lot. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, it allows us, like PJ said, we in there voguing, but we also talking. And when you start talking, you start hearing things that I can help you with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you came here. So it was a good way to engage the community. And what I like about the United Black Element up in Dallas is we made that, like HMI, Kiki headquarters. Anytime you see United Black Element, you know it's the Kiki scene. So these kids can trust that if I go to AJ, and now AJ was a worker, now he's a part of the scene. You see what I'm saying? So it's like they know they can trust that they can go to AJ. They know they can go to Vive and talk to the president of the Kiki scene, which is Chris back there. How you doing, President? They can go to these people that started off doing the work, but now they're in the scene. So it starts with that, and then it becomes a conversation. Now we can mentor, and that's how we can engage the community, just by teaching them how to vogue and teaching them about ballroom.
And then also recognizing that we had that captive audience, we had these kids coming all the time. We added on an additional layer, which was the Black Academy, which is how we got to Vogue Academy, right? Because it's more than just about the performance piece, but it's about leadership development. So Black Academy, Building Leaders and Cultivating Knowledge, which is a formal leadership development program that we created, combined that with having this captive audience of members of the ballroom community. And now here we are pushing out champions, pushing out leaders, building a work stream, a workforce pipeline of folks who are ready to enter into the work world, internships, like elevating personal brands and entrepreneurship and all types of things, right? And then also with the Black Awards, elevating then those individuals to a bigger platform so that their work can be acknowledged, right? And so again, it's building them up from literally every aspect of who they are.
And now at this point, throughout the evolution of our relationship with the community, it is no longer just Vogue Academy on those Fridays, which still happens regularly. Girls Madness is here by announcement this week, and so we're not able to have it. They were upset. They let us know. But AJ, talk to us a little bit about the house practices and how you evolved that.
So, like everyone has said, Vogue Academy happens every Friday. So it started with the House of Juicy just coming to me and was like, okay, we need to practice somewhere. So they wanted to start on Mondays. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. The next thing you know, my house was like, we need to start practicing. So I'm like, okay, I'll get y'all Tuesday. So throughout the week, I was like, okay, why don't I just sit down and see who all really is serious about practicing? And so now it's become a thing now where I don't even mind. I stay so late on the days that I'm supposed to be off, probably like at 9 o'clock. I'm here till midnight to let these houses practice because I can see their dedication. I know, like everyone said too, like this is a sense of an outlet. This is somewhere where they can come and be themselves. So it's like, and they're with their families. That's the biggest thing to me. You are with family. So it's like, it's become a great thing. It's part of our program now. So.
And a good thing about that, like we keep saying, sometimes like you're looking at your own life, but you don't realize that some people are waiting for practice just to get around the person that understands them. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's more than just voguing, and it's more than just being in ballroom. They can be waiting for that one Monday practice to say, and I've had this happen to me many times, I've just been waiting 2 months because I needed to talk to you about something. You know what I'm saying? Or they go to AJ and say, AJ, I was gonna call you, I was gonna text you, but I knew I was gonna see you on this day. That's why they reading us now, but we know why they wanna come on Fridays and stuff like that. Sometimes you'll see them there and they not even practicing, so why are you here? They're here for a reason. They're around their family, they're around somebody that understands understands them, because we don't know what each one of you go through day to day where you can't be your authentic self. So you wait to show up in a space where you can be yourself and it's appreciated. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it's important that he stays those type of hours. So.
And another thing that's unique about UB, which has always been baked into the fabric of the program, is sometimes coming to that practice means this is my first time having access to a meal, or to a hot shower, right? Or to sexual health resources, or sometimes this is the only time that I have access to a warm, safe space, right? Because many of these kids are transient, right? Are couch surfing, and this is during that time, you know for a fact that you can keep them healthy and safe. Outside of that, you don't know what they're going to do. There's been many times that folks have left UB and said, I'm about to go to such and such underpass, which is where I sleep, And so knowing that we can keep them healthy and safe in just that small period of time, and potentially even talk to them about additional resources to ensure their safety in other times, is that's reward enough for me.
And like PJ said as well, I've been in this job for 2 years now, and I can say the amount of people that I have come in contact with has changed my life for the better. Because, like you said, there are transient participants that we have, and there have been times where I myself have stayed at UB to make sure that someone either got home, needed, like you said, food. I myself have bought food for just for my participants, because I know that they're struggling, or I know that they're going through something. And so I can say honestly, I have built relationships with so many people. I've built love and family with everyone. So that's why I'm heavy on saying I'm really a cousin to these people. I'm really family, and this is how I want them to know, I want them to be treated. So whenever they come to Resource Center, like J. Rock said, there are days where they come on a Tuesday, and I'm confused, why are you here? But then it's I really just want to just be here around somebody, and it's just okay, what do you need to talk about? And what I'm thinking is probably going to be a 5-minute conversation will turn into a I'm with you all day type of thing. So it's and I'm fine with that, because I want everyone to know this is where you're supposed to come for those things. This is what I'm here for. That is literally my job. I get paid to be gay and to be happy and to be around you.
I used to be gay.
All right, I'd like to open up the floor. Does anyone have any questions or anything they would like to bring up for the room? Yes.
I wanted to know what defines, what is Kiki in comparison to, or in the context of the ballroom scene, and also besides becoming more visibly mainstream in pop culture, what have been some evolutions in Kiki and ballroom in the last 5-10 years that you've seen internally?
I can take the first part of that really quickly and easily. If you think of ballroom as a sport, the Kiki scene is junior varsity and mainstream is varsity.
Okay.
The second part of that, I'm not involved in the Kiki scene specifically anymore, so I'm going to let you handle that.
What was the second part again? Because I was trying to get Twiki to do it, but what's going on?
What have you seen evolve in both scenes, in the past 5-10 years, besides the fact that we see it more on TV and in pop culture, even though we always have?
What I've seen evolve is it went from, and I just learned how to deal with it and adjust with it because we are still human. It went from Kiki to this is serious. It started off as almost a rebellion to the older generation of mainstream ballroom. And let's just face it, we're living longer here now. So you got people in ballroom that's in their 40s and everything. You see what I'm saying? So what I did and what you do, we're not doing all that. We're not doing, okay, you know what? We're going to go and we're going to do it on our scene. And I realized that when I went to the Kiki scene, me being from the mainstream, I'm saying to myself, what's the difference? These kids take this seriously. They take it seriously, but we still allow it. People like myself, being an elder in the scene, keep it to try to make it be listen, let's take some of this tension off of it because this is a place to learn and get started and develop. And if you choose to take that over to the mainstream, you can. But if you never want to go to the mainstream, and a lot of mainstream people hate when I say this, if you never want to go to the mainstream, and you just want to be in Kiki and then one day become a mentor and just develop, do that. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want to do with it. So I've seen it evolve in that way and evolve from being under the skirt of, well, not under the skirt, behind mainstream, people not knowing about it, to kind of getting in front of mainstream now.
Agreed.
Mainstream is not mainstream without Kiki now. At first we had the mainstream ballroom, which was ballroom, period. Then they kind of started dying down. The new energy that you see in the mainstream, the winners, the people that are looked up at, they came from the Kiki scene.
100%.
So that's what I've seen evolve, especially over the past 5 years and everything. And if y'all seen the last, if y'all watched HBO Legendary on Max, that last season, who won that season was that Kiki House of Juicy. I could have put that Kiki House, and to tell you the truth, that last season, the Kiki houses on there, I could have put them up against any mainstream house. Because the Kiki kids, they go in to have fun with it. You see what I'm saying? While the mainstream was taking it too serious and being bitter about it. But like I said, Kiki is now kind of melted, and the mainstream cannot be mainstream without Kiki now.
So really good point.
Yeah, and I'll just add that just from a what you see standpoint, right? We know that ballroom has become a little less black and brown too. And then we also know that in the Kiki scene specifically, but also mainstream, that there's always new categories and ways of expression that are being added, right? And so there's lip sync categories, there's like all types of things, right? And so ballroom is like a constant evolution to bring in more and different types of people. And so it really just continues to grow to be an inclusive place, but at the heart of it is black and brown queer people.
Can I
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
just to get at, sort of do the same bit about mainstream. There's a few differences specifically in the last 5 years. One, balls are bigger, right? The venues we have, the resources that are poured into them, the cash prize categories, all of that has become extremely big and large in the last 5 years for sure. And to PJ's point, I feel like unless it's a ball that the promoters are very intentionally trying to keep it like an old school sort of framework, it's lost a bit of how sacred it is in many ways.
Can a house have members that participate in both Kiki and
Of
mainstream?
course, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my question was kind of on to what you all were talking about. Like, I know earlier they were actually just talking about how ballroom needs to be something that was kind of like kept under wraps, and you were just talking about how you're kind of losing some of that like sacredness of the scene. So I wonder, like, as there's more visibility and awareness about the ballroom scene, especially from like people who would otherwise be engaged within it, I'm wondering like what are the impacts of that, both positive and negative, and how do you all feel about the way ballroom is being viewed and perceived in today's community and just general?
I mean, I think there's a ton of pros and cons. One of them is that people who have been in ballroom for a long time are getting opportunities they've never gotten before, right? And so that's definitely a pro. I think, yeah, like I said, a con is like how massive balls are now. It's just no way for some of them. It's just no way for them to feel the same way. I think this particular thing I'm about to say is really more about social media than like big projects that are about ballroom, but it's lost some of its sternness that J-Rock was mentioning. When we started walking balls, like the category was a category. There was not, and although there's always been ballroom politics, a chop was a chop, and if you got chopped, you received it, and you went back and you got better, right? No debating. And so now there's this debate, back and forth with judges. Now there's this, I find that I'm witnessing some judges like let stuff through that wouldn't have gotten through before because of, things like social media and so I think that part's changed a lot, and that's a con. And there are still folks in community who are still able to throw the type of balls that balance it all.
And then I'll also add that we luckily have, with Black history, with Black queer history, a lot of times, a lot of our contributions are erased, but we have key contributors and stakeholders that are holding the fidelity of the model ballroom, J-Rock, Twiggy, Jack, you know, all of these folks. And then we also have ballroom historians like Michael Roberson, who's really intentionally documenting what it means, and then even like the documentaries like Kiki, and even Pose to a certain degree, like really cementing and memorializing ballroom in history so that it is then articulated and told from our point of view in the future.
Yeah, I think that's.
Oh no, I was gonna say, one thing, it was two things. I really have a problem, but I know that you have to evolve with the times. I love ballroom for what it was supposed to be outside of the actual ball. And sometimes I look at it and I say, they sometimes forget that that person is homeless. They sometimes forget that person don't know where their next meal gonna come from, so how they gonna get to the $50 ball?
Right.
How they gonna get that effect? What happened to having a ball in the gym? What happened to having a ball at a little hall or something to bring it in? Because it has got so big, the person that has the most talent may not have the financial access to get and display their talent. So that's one thing that I shift with people like, your ball is only $30 with all that. I want to be able to let the one that probably couldn't get in, you know, and show us what ballroom has done for you. And then the second part to that is, I look at ballroom like, if y'all ever go on Netflix and watch this, The Evolution of Hip Hop, when I was watching it, the whole hip hop, $1 billion industry. When I looked at the evolution of hip hop, all I seen was ballroom. When Roxanne Shante, when she was like, ain't no money in this, we just out here rapping and stuff, we ain't getting no money for this. But now look at rappers and hip hop and everything. You see what I'm saying? I feel like, and there is still people that are the best rappers that you will never know, because they're out there in the community. I feel like ballroom is the same way, and what we're dealing with, and Twiggy can attest to this, is we're trying to get in front of it because this talent can be taken away from us, and we'll just be those talented people on the side, while somebody else that is not genuine and culturally involved in this, they're getting all the money off of what we developed. So that's my big thing now that I think it's got big, but we're trying to be involved and make sure that we got genuine people, like I said, the Twiggies and the Jacks and everything. We say, because I'm the kind of person that's like, I'm not watching that, who involved? Oh, well, Twiggy on the, okay, we can watch a Twiggy on there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just.
We've run out of time. And so thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
How can we actually find out more about the ballroom scene, the houses that you all are talking about for people who don't know? Is it like a map that lines all the houses?
I got you.
Good idea.
All right. If you take out your phones right now, you can go to YouTube, right, and type in all one word, Tens or Chops, TENORCHOPS, and subscribe. That is my new LLC, because Ballroom helped me be, But that is my new channel, and it's also an LLC for myself and, throwing balls and commentating. But also follow J-Rock Dupree on IG. If you follow me, I can tell you everything that's going on in the Gulf Coast. Every time there's a ball or something is going on in Houston or Austin or Dallas, if you connect with me, you can follow along with how we're doing things. And guess what? If you hit my inbox, I actually respond. I'll put you down on history and get you culturally involved. So when you go out there, you're not just a regular spectator, you're actually in the culture.
And then for your own research, of course, Twiggy produced the amazing documentary Kiki, which is on what, Hulu?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
But you can also buy it on iTunes and YouTube.
Exactly. And then, of course, one of the legendary documentaries that really talks about the origin of ballroom, Paris is Burning, is always a good start to kind of really getting into understanding what ballroom is.
Same for J-Rock, Simply Twiggy across all platforms.
Simply Twiggy across all platforms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I know there's been some amazing conversations. I was like, we are really, really delving into what it means to really build community and do community work. So we know we have been like sitting and talking. So we want to give you all a 5-minute break while we kind of change panels. We have an amazing sister conversation, a conversation about sisterhood between and among Black, Christian,